Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for showing up tonight. Oh, yes. I'm going to start with, I get to show this. So good evening. This is Julie. Julie's one of our super fans. She's asking, we're going to do a inflammation class. And now that I'm ready, I got the presentation all done. I'm just trying to figure out an ideal date for everyone. So last time I kind of ran it we were like in a spot where it probably wouldn't have worked. It was like kids' school stuff and everything else. So I will make sure every time we're going to talk about that. So I got some cool special surprises for that night as well. So hopefully we'll get it all ready to go, but I can't wait. That's going to be a in-person live interactive, hopefully, if I can figure out all the bells and whistles to it. I think I made it to a day. I could talk on inflammation for 2 to 3 days. And what I want to do is cut it into smaller chunks so that it's doable. And so, just like the 1% tribe is, a lot of times if I give too much information at once, it's kind of overwhelming. And so that's one reason why I like to do these little, these sections here. If you look in the chat also, just look, I got my Rumble channel up there, baby. We're up to like 36 subscribers or something. I love it. It's really fun. I'm getting quite a few views on the old Rumble channel as well. So that's pretty cool. I like Rumble just because of the nuances. So eventually Rumble has a really cool feature where we could go live and just take questions, and we can do it here pretty well. So like if you have questions as we go, let me know. I'm on I'm on Facebook, YouTube, X, Rumble, and all of those, and several Facebook ones. So if you have a question, put it in the comments. It's okay. Hopefully it'll populate up here and then I can see that as we go. But tonight's going to be interesting. I love going into the herbal section. This one's an interesting one because the herbals. Oh man, it's a tougher road in muscle and in musculoskeletal, and the reason it is because we haven't found. Now there is a ton, but there isn't a lot in the sense of something different than you've heard, right? So I wanted to find those ones that you haven't really heard of that could really, really help you as well. Because a lot of your anti-inflammatory herbs are going to help you, right? No matter what, you're talking inflammation of the body. What's the first thing to get hit is probably your musculoskeletal system, because it's what I'd say it's not going to hit your heart and your brain as much, right? Because your heart and your brain are kind of super important. So a lot of those kind of situations, you're going to see a lot of overplay in both situations. But I did find some cool info for muscle and bone, and it'll get your minds open on like how important it is to do all of the things. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to find 3 articles. One of the first ones I found was pretty funny because I take care of so many. Oh man, in our area, dance is huge. It's a very big competition, and it brings a smile to my face every time. Some of the dancers that come in laugh at me because I say, you know what, a chiropractor's favorite show on TV is, because I had no idea. So it's that. So you think you can dance. The reason isn't because of all the different dances and stuff. It's the amazing part of a kid that, let's say, does hip hop, and then in 2 weeks, and is a pro hip hopper, pretty much like the best of the best. And all of a sudden, in 2 to 3 weeks or something, they're trained and they're doing ballet, but to a level that's just ridiculous. So to me, the neurology and the human body to be able to like function and change that up is fantastic. So this article goes with that. So they did an article on dancing, freeform dancing, regular, any kind of dancing, right? And a lot of these ladies, especially, got men too, but a lot of them are at a higher level than what this article was. But like just basic dancing, free form at a bar, those kind of things. They actually found that is as good as a 5K or cycling. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was pretty cool. You kind of know it by the amount of sweat and calories you're doing. So if you get into dancing at like in a wedding or whatever, that is actually like a 5K. So just remember that. All right. And here is and this one's a good article on our gut microbiome, but it was how digging in the dirt helps preserve your brain. It sharpens memories, digging in the dirt, which is awesome. The research showed that gardening creates sharper memory, better focus, and lasting cognitive gains without expensive supplements or medical interventions. That's pretty awesome. But just the touching the soil, it should make sense to a lot of us because of so many different things. The energy of the earth, especially in a really good organic energy, like if you have a nice soil that you're working in the ground, it has a ton of vitamins for the plants, right? You're not going to do it on the driveway, the dirt driveway over there, right? So that's going to not be as lucrative for you. But if you're in a nice, healthy soil, a lot of those things help. The other thing they don't bring up in there is the energetics of what they call grounding. So grounding, once we learn this, I want to go into the deep conspiracy stuff with you guys at some point, but there's levels of charges like throughout our thing, and our earth is charged, right? So when we put our bare feet on that earth, we are actually connecting to the earth. That's why we have, like we have rubber shoes, right? So rubber shoes would actually disconnect us from that situation. That's one reason people started barefoot walking, barefoot running, and they feel so much better. It's not about just necessarily this grounding effect that'll change your aura. It does. And the reason is, remember, our human biofield actually goes 5 feet around us. So it goes all the way around us. That goes including through your feet. And so a lot of times that's why that grounding stuff is really, really cool. You have grounding and I'm not sure. I have a few patients that have done the grounding mats and said they're very good. There's everything like bed covers, those kind of things as well. So we'll see, they might be fantastic on the market as well. And then my last article Oh, okay. So eating ultra processed daily food daily increases depression, especially in older adults. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. And the reason it is a big deal, oh, let me move that. The reason it is, Julie says, absolutely with the earth. Absolutely with the earth. That is so true. The reason the ultra processed food is a big deal for my older adults is because a lot of them stop cooking. A lot of my widows, a lot of them will eat out like every day, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, in that sense, but, because you do what you have to do once in a while. But that ultra processed stuff, it's so chemically laden that it really, really causes issues. So the stuff that I'm going to show you today with your musculoskeletal and joints, you're not getting a lot of that. And so that's something to really think about as we go. Okay, so enough of that. Remember, too, on Wednesday night, we do this. I've been doing it about 6:30. If my time permits, I'll try to tell you ahead of time when it is. But we do Whole Health Weekly, where we go through those articles a little deeper, or we find new stuff that, like, whatever's happening in the world of what's popular that week. Because we're in a world of algorithms, and things pop up that may be good, may not be so good, right? So that's what Whole Health Weekly is all about. So let's get into this, herbs for the muscles and bones. All right, like the picture I found, that was pretty cool. So this is 1% Tribe Herbal Healing with herbs for the muscles and bones. All right, what are we going to go over tonight? The best herbs that we can find for these two subjects. And I'm going to separate them into two. So I'm going to talk about muscles first, and then we talk about a little bone action later. Bone, cartilage, joint. Think joint when I say bones. And how do we get these herbs into us? And then how do we use them? How, when to take them? Do you take them during exercise? There's a lot of little caveats to this one that I found personally that you have to really pay attention to as well. It's like the when and the where, right? It's like, so a lot of these things could be good, but we're just not taking them when we should. Okay, so we'll go into that a little bit. Okay, so let's go through the vitamins and minerals first for muscle. Okay, so this first section is going to be about not necessarily the herbal remedies, but what we should do to build our muscle mass. Because as we age, it's really hard to build muscle. And so that muscle, but you can do it. I've seen it, so you can literally change your muscle structure as we age as well. We just have to line up some things. And a lot of it has to do with diet, and especially vitamins. Okay. Vitamins and minerals is a key piece to muscle and bone health. Okay. And so that's going to be in both sections, but they're going to kind of cross over a little bit. Okay. So just wanted you to be aware of that before we go. Okay. So our world, we have a lack of vitamins and minerals, and this lack leads to major muscle and joint problems. We need to attack this area through herbs, but we need to start with vitamins and minerals. The basics. So we're going to go into the basics for muscles, and we'll go through each one of these. Okay. So creatine. Creatine is kind of a big popular one. I recommend typically, especially, okay, so there's a controversial on younger adults, and we can get into that at some point. Creatine is a chemical that your body needs and uses and creates, right? So creatine is the thing that helps kind of get your muscle mass back built up. It is an active ingredient in what they call the ATP cycle. And so this whole thing, we don't have to go into it all. It creates energy to be able to move the muscle. It's shown super effective to help with building muscle because it goes into the muscle fibers itself. One of the problems is like there's a yin and a yang. So in young kids, you want your body to create the creatine, So we don't want to be on that all the time, because then the human body, the natural building mechanics of our innate intelligence, that mechanics doesn't work as well. Just kind of like I tell people, like with digestive enzymes, if you take digestive enzymes all the time, your body stops making them, because the innate intelligence is smart. It's going to use its resources other places. So creatine in younger population is a hit or a miss thing, and especially if you know how to regulate it, right? So there is some good positives that we're seeing. However, there's also don't do it all the time kind of thing in creatine. Now, with creatine in older adults, as we start kind of our muscles start breaking down. They call it like muscle catabolism, right? So it's things start to catabolize. So that starts to that breakdown, we lose our ability to create the creatine we need. Okay. So a lot of times the creatine as an adult is fantastic, right? So you can do it more often. Very, very, very functional as far as that goes. And we're going to talk about that. Like, we don't want to just take it if we're not doing muscle building things, if we're not doing decently active things. You don't have to do weightlifting, but you should probably do some kind of exercise. If you're a physically active, I don't want you sitting in a chair and just taking creatine and think you're going to get muscle mass of some sort. So just remember that as we go. Okay. So creatine's my first one. I always recommend on that supplement, though, is to get as organic as you possibly can. I was lucky enough in my office to discover my wonderful partners in Chups is a Amish herbal store. They're down in Sturgis, and they make some fantastic stuff. And they actually have a really good creatine with not a lot of fillers to it. It's just straight creatine, which is great. It's just almost like a powdery, almost like a crystal. So just remember that if you want one, go get a good one. Just be careful with a bunch of chemicals in it. Okay. Whey protein. So whey protein's an interesting one. If you can take the whey, which a general population can. So we'll talk about whey. The reason whey is so important is because it has this amino acid in it called leucine. Leucine is a huge bodybuilding amino acid. So it allows the muscles to really start building up. And so doing whey protein, maybe once a day, doing some kind of protein shake with some whey protein in it, is one of the keys to this whole thing, because the amino acid you need, this leucine, is super important. So we want to make sure. And if you get anything out of tonight, it's what to put in you, when you're doing these things. So making sure you got that protein in you. Now, do I love your only protein you get is through a protein shake? No, I want you to get the good stuff as well, because we know, a good fat and a good meat and, those kind of things has so many different properties that we want in our muscle as well. So that's a good one. This one's crazy that it fits. So if you're doing, in the next ones, if you're doing good things for your immune system, you're doing good things for your muscle system. I did not know this very well until, I started doing research on this subject, but zinc actually increases and levels up your testosterone. Okay. So when we have testosterone is the hormone we need and in balance to our estrogen. This is not trying to make women men. Okay. So what happens is in our world, women have estrogen up here, testosterone down here. With our foods that we have a bunch of estrogen rich foods, and it creates a difference. It creates this, it makes the ratio between the two unsustainable. It's not good. Let's say it's 2-to-1. And then with the amount of estrogen that's put in our food to make our animals fatter and all those kind of things, it goes up to 4-to-5-to-1, right? So zinc gets in your cells, right? And remember what you take with zinc. I didn't put that in there, quercetin, right? Because quercetin allows that zinc to kind of get into those cells a lot better. So remember quercetin, okay? I'll put that in the chat, actually. So quercetin and zinc. Okay. Did I spell it right? As close as I'm getting on the old spelling there. So good luck. No, I'm just kidding. But so as we go, so zinc increases our testosterone and starts to get that up. So as we go, we may also lose our testosterone. So we have that process as well. So just remember, it's a nice balancing the ratio. A lot of my women lose muscle mass based on, let's say, too much estrogen in their system and not enough testosterone. Men is the same way. Men, it's more important to make sure that your testosterone is up to keep that muscle mass. Okay. Because we all know as we age, that's what happens. Vitamin D. Vitamin D, we really need to have this. This is for bone and muscle. Okay. So vitamin D, and I'm going to tell you some crazy numbers, but between 10 and 1,000 IUs a day. I'm sorry, 10 and 20,000 IUs a day. Did I say that right? Okay. So 10 to 20,000 IUs a day if you're low, right? So this is one that you want to make sure that you understand what we have. Okay. All right. Oh, sweet. Good job. All right. So vitamin D is a big one. So 10,000 IUs, 20,000 IUs, somewhere in there. And the reason is, and you'll find out with vitamin D is a very big one for bone health. And we'll talk about that as well. But it also helps level out a lot of different things. So those are two huge vitamins that if you get good at them, it's going to help your muscle grow. Okay. So that's what we want as far as like helping your joints. Fish oils. Fish oils are fantastic for the muscle. It's omega-3 fatty acids, needing it for the building blocks of these muscles. And then a good amino acid supplement is never a bad idea. So you can get these good amino acids with leucine in it, right? And that can help a ton. Leucine's just a really good muscle building block. There's a supplement called HMB that's found to do another one. And that one I would recommend highly as well. HMB, I can't ever remember the name of it. Hang on. Let me do that for you guys. It's always good to tell you guys when I don't know stuff. This one, I like to know the name though. All right. Okay. So HMB is hydroxymethylbutyrate. Okay. So hydroxymethylbutyrate, it's a compound produced when the body breaks down leucine that we just talked about, which is good. That's another little trick to get that leucine up there. So it's the uses are for muscle growth and recovery, exercise performance, and reducing muscle loss. Okay. And of course, injury recovery. So HMB, kind of a newer one that I would say highly recommended. So they found a lot of good things, and it links to the stuff I was telling you about with the amino acid leucine. Okay. So now let's go into some more. We have a ton tonight, guys. We have a ton of vitamins. We have a ton of minerals, and it's all worth it. Okay. So because once you start looking at the different vitamins and minerals, once we get that going, then a lot of these things will start happening for us. Okay. So trace minerals, almost all trace minerals are fantastic. Okay. So trace minerals are these little ones. Think of copper. One we'll talk about tonight a few times is boron. Boron's one. These all are really tiny trace minerals. And these trace minerals, a lot of times, are little pieces. You'd get them from, if we came from the garden, a perfectly healthy soil and all those kind of things would have a lot more trace minerals. We just don't have them as much. And so trace minerals are a big part. Copper, Selenium's a good one. Manganese is another one. So those are some major ones, but I tell people get a good trace mineral supplementation and you're going to notice a difference. A lot of people, when they start not seeing the result, the mix, the key factor in all of the muscle and the bone strengthening and is trace minerals. So let's say you don't notice, let's say you're taking whey protein, creatine, and you're not noticing your muscles changing, but you have a good multivitamin that has quite a bit of the vitamins in it. It's usually these trace minerals, because the trace minerals act as things. So like act as boron. So boron has a ton of situations where it interacts with a lot of things that allow that muscle mass to get bigger. Okay. So it's a big deal. So just remember that. A lot of people don't focus on that because it's trace. It's, maybe it's secondary. I don't know. So here's some other good ones that I love. And there's so many good vitamins in this that it almost makes the herbal world. Maybe that's what I call, well, God or the universal intelligence. Maybe it said, hey, make sure you're just getting all the vitamins I gave you throughout the universal intelligence of the world, which is nature, and your muscles and bones will be just fine. Right. So anyway, so trace minerals, big one. And we'll talk about a few different ones. Vitamin A, huge. Vitamin C, actually, very good. Lots of different ways to take some vitamin C. Potassium is huge. Potassium is a very, very good one. This one, I want you to think of getting potassium in your diet as well. So you can take a potassium supplement, but let me look this up real quick. I want to give you good potassium-rich foods. Okay. All right. So there's tons, right? So potassium, the best ones are, so you have bananas, oranges, avocados, cantaloupes, dried fruits, raisins, apricots, prunes, prune juice. All of those fruits have a lot of potassium in them. Vegetables, some potatoes. Potatoes. It's a Michigan thing, apparently. Potatoes, especially with the skin, very good potassium. Sweet potatoes, fantastic. Spinach, Swiss chard, tomatoes, that's really good. Brussels sprouts and beets. Okay. So those are just a few. There's a lot of good ones. Legumes, you got some white beans, kidney beans, lentils, soybeans, almonds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, dairy. You have milk, yogurt, protein. We have some good salmon, tuna, chicken, beef, and some other stuff. Coconut water is another one, but it's huge. Potassium, we don't get enough. Because we eat so much ultra processed food most of the time, so we don't get the viable amount. So a lot of times, if you can make sure that you're out of that list I just read, which is a pretty significant list, try to make it potassium throughout your day so you don't have to do much supplementation on this. But it is a big one that we're noticing a lot, and it does a ton of help with muscle building. Vitamin E is probably the one that no one talks about. We're going to talk about it a little bit. They're called tocopherol or toco. I got the word in a minute. Tocotrines. There's a way to take them. I think it's tocopherol, which I want to say. But vitamin E is a huge one that allows you to build and not have the muscle fatigue. I noticed I was working out in the yard yesterday. We're trying some different herbs this year. Julie will be appreciative of this. We're trying some different natural herbs to the area. So we got hyssop, which we've talked about a couple weeks ago. Is a catarrh, if you remember, is good for sinuses and like those kind of things. And I got, well, we did lemongrass because we had so much fun with that one anyway. But in lemongrass, I found out in this area, when you grow lemongrass, in a lot of places it will grow all year, but in Michigan, because of the frost, it dies in the frost, and so you want to make sure you either bring it in or I let mine go and it died, but it grew great. So I went and grabbed one right away. It was kind of cool because the dead plant still smelled like that awesome lemony smell to it. It was great. And so I got a few others, and a lot of the ones I got were native because on purpose, so that we could see how the native plants go and kind of grow those. Because a lot of these are perennials, like where I want them to come back year after year and have your own harvest year after year. And try to get a lot of flowering ones, but we'll go into that later. I get too excited. But vitamin K2, okay, so we want to make sure vitamin K is in there. So vitamin K, K2, that goes along with your vitamin D really well, because it allows and we'll talk about this not only with muscle strength, but we'll talk in depth about your the vitamin D and K2 together make a really good thing for your bones and your ligaments and everything else. The B vitamins, fantastic. So obviously you want a giant good multivitamin. This is basically what it comes to. So this last one is interesting because we're going to talk about colostrum. Colostrum is this like milk, and now it's a supplement. So it's a beginning stages of infant milk. Colostrum is, now that they've understood it, there's not a lot of ways naturally, a lot of chemical ways to do this, but a lot of times you'll see it in the medicine world of increasing your growth hormone. When you increase your growth hormone, a lot of times you'll see massive changes, massive strength changes, all those kind of things. But it's essentially steroids, right? So, and it's not good. If you can find a different alternative way to do it, I would do that. And colostrum is one of those. Colostrum is a supplement. It's almost like I think it's a whey powder. You can put in to a whey shake, and you can get the best of both worlds. You can get the whey, the leucine out of the whey, plus you can have this colostrum, which really the best benefit is that it actually increases your growth hormone. That's what we lose as we age, guys. So getting into the colostrum is a very good thing. I'm going to start supplementing with it myself, and I'll let you know how that goes as well. That's something I've never added, but there's a reason I do this. It's not just for the millions of fans I have out there. It's for me. So just let you know that. All right. I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. So now we got to step out of that. So let's do a little review just to make sure you heard it. Creatine sounds good. Whey protein, nice. You can do those both in a little shake, making sure that we're in an exercise day, probably making sure. And on these, you don't need to on exercise days, but your zinc, vitamin D, fish oil you should take every day. Amino acids, you could aim that towards your more exercise. The hydroxymethyl blah 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 butyrene, hydroxymethylbutyrate, HMB for short, will be a good one because it has such good muscle recovery and growth. So that's a really good one. Then we must make sure we get our trace minerals in there. Trace minerals are huge. Vitamin A, vitamin C, potassium, E, K, B vitamins. Big multivitamin. Worth it. Okay? Totally worth it. Colostrum is another basically supplementation that allows that growth hormone to actually increase. And a lot of my guys will understand that as we age, we start losing the ability to gain that strength. These are some things that could really, really change it. When I went back into the weightlifting, so right now I'll tell you guys, but I'm doing 3 months of my old bodybuilding stuff. So I just finished that, and it was fantastic going through that. But now I'm switching to what they call high intensity interval training for the next 3 months. I wanted to do that to see how this shakes out, see how the body it takes that. And I tell you what, changing changing is always good. And I like to challenge my body so it doesn't remember everything. So one of the things that happens in just bodybuilding is that you do the same thing over and over and it starts to pattern it and you don't get as many gains. That's my theory, right? But okay. So anyway, so let's get on to the next part. We need to fix the diet. If we're going to do this stuff, we have to fix the diet. It's a key piece. Key piece to this whole thing is we got to make sure we're eating correctly, which isn't that it's not going to be anything you haven't heard before, but we want to make sure that now that we have all the vitamins and the trace minerals and the amino acids we need to build those muscles, what are we going to do in our diet? Okay. We need to make sure that one of the reasons muscle will not build is what they call insulin resistance. Okay. So being diabetic and being pre-diabetic, when your sugar is not, it's the insulin is not working as it should to allow the cells. What insulin resistance means is your body, your pancreas creates this insulin. The insulin is to break down sugars, do a lot of these things. Well, then the insulin isn't allowed once we become pre-diabetic or diabetic. Then what happens is the insulin can't get into the cell to do the job it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help you break down these proteins. These proteins then turn into muscle, and it's really cool process. But if they're not allowed to do it, then you got a problem. So a lot of times we want to get away from, and we want to make sure that we're not in that pre-diabetic to diabetic situation. And if we are, we need to get it under control, right? And start eating that way, which is always interesting because there's a couple of caveats to this. Okay. And we don't want to have a high stress environment or understand. Well, some of us are just going to be in high stress environments. That's just the way it is, right? How do we handle that high stress environment? So what we want to do is make sure our cortisol levels down. Cortisol is, remember that rest and digest, remember the subconscious nervous system that we don't have to talk about or think about. It's called parasympathetic and sympathetic. So you have this system, this nervous system that's an unconscious nervous system. One is fight or flight, right? So it's the active one. It's the one in high stress times, makes your body do certain things. And then you have the rest and digest. When we're in a high cortisol, it doesn't allow the muscle cell to do and break down proteins and do the muscle building as we need to. A high cortisol environment all day will make you actually lose muscle. Isn't that crazy? So those are two different situations that we have to be careful of. And now that we know that, now that should be armor for us to like move on to the next part. Okay. So we need to have a good, correct diet to get to that point where it allows the muscles to truly get built. Okay. All right. So we're not going to go into those diets. Okay. So think of Mediterranean diet if you want some carbs in there because of all the vitamins that I was telling you. That's one reason some people have frustration. Some people go to a keto diet, which is just meat, no sugar, dairy, those kind of things. One of the reasons keto doesn't necessarily line up exactly with muscle building, which a lot of people think they do when they're young, because it has those other building blocks that you need from a lot of good veggies. Fruits and veggies have a ton of those trace minerals, vitamins, those kind of things. So keto is good for a while, but you want to make sure you're getting the nutrients from the food as well, or from fruits and veggies in there, because it's so vitamin rich and it will help you build the muscles. Okay. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to go into each diet, but just remember that's important. These are building blocks that we want to get ready. So if we want to build this muscle mass, it's just not, hey, take this and you're going to get bigger. Okay. Or stronger or whatever. Okay. Okay. So now we can get into the herbs that are awesome for muscle nutrition. So I'm not going to give you too many crazy ones. And we've been here before. Okay. So some of these you've heard, some of you that we haven't talked about. The first one is anybody could tell me in the chat. I'll give you a quiz, but in the chat, tell me what an adaptogen is. And I'll give you some time. But ashwagandha is one of my favorite adaptogens. Adaptogens are something that adapts all right, I give it away. So it adapts the entire body. It helps and regulates the entire body system. That's how you want to think of it. So ashwagandha is a perfect choice for muscle because we want to have that perfect environment to build the muscle. Okay. Studies suggest that it may increase the testosterone levels and improve strength and muscle mass when paired with resistance training. A 2015 study found men taking 600 milligrams daily for 8 weeks saw huge strength gains versus the placebo. So that's awesome. Here's a new one we haven't talked about. Tribulus terrestris. Marketed to boost testosterone, but research 2014 shows inconsistent for muscle growth or strength in athletes. So that one's on the bubble. I know this one's good. Fenugreek. It could support testosterone and recovery. It did it good in 2016 study, about 5 milligrams daily. Okay. So these are things that if you start strength training or resistance training or trying to build muscle, maybe adding one of these. I would probably suggest ashwagandha because it's so universally great for a lot of things. That would be smart. Very, very smart, to start with one of those. Rhodiola rosacea. This one is big time in the rest of the body as well. But it's really good, and it's known for reducing fatigue and improving endurance. So that could actually aid in muscle building because that's a big part of it. Once you start getting into muscle strengthening and all those kind of things, you want to have a way to recover faster, and rhodiola can do that. All right, so now let's move. I think the next one, yeah. So let's start in the bones. So hopefully I'm not like overwhelming you guys. I always feel like on herb night, I like overwhelm you. Hopefully I don't. Or listen to it or get on my if you go back, go look at 1% Tribe, go up there, do the Rumble channel, and then listen to this a few times so you get all the vitamins and minerals and stuff. So I give you this overview, and all this stuff really works, but you have to set the table. If you want to fix muscle, set the table. Vitamins, minerals, eat right. Pretty simple stuff, but now you know what you can do. Add some of these herbs as you go. Okay? Get some of them amino acids in there. All right, here we go. So here's the bone and joint help. This one it has to start with the vitamins and minerals. It has to. That's a key to the whole thing. And we're going to hit up some that we hit before. Okay? Vitamin D, magnesium, K2. So this is where we can talk about it. Vitamin D and K2 together will allow calcium to get into the bone. Notice I haven't said calcium. Isn't that interesting? Now, calcium is one that we can absolutely put in there. The problem is our body doesn't like it that much. By itself, it has to have all these things, and it has to have vitamin D, K2, and magnesium to really get into the bone and do what we want in the bone area to kind of repair those. So now we're finding out more and more and how much of this is important. And we're going to talk about these trace minerals as well. It's called, I said it wrong. It's tocotrienols. Tocotrienols is the vitamin E way you want to take vitamin E. There's lots of different ways to take it. You can find this in the your supplement store as tocotrienols. That's the way you want to take vitamin E. Wheat germ has a lot of vitamin E as well, so that's another reason that's up there. And then omega-3 fish oil. Anything that's oily that's good for you will help your joints. So remember that olive oil, coconut oil, all those things have that have some kind of lubrication too. Omega 3s, the fatty acids are super important to keep all those things healthy. Trace minerals. So trace minerals are the pieces we need to add if we're having issues. If we're having, okay, the one that I see a lot, I'll see a few people on there that have had their bone density test. Give me a thumbs up if you've had a bone density test. Some of those bone density tests, then they show you have a reduction in bone density, right? And they're good. It's good knowledge to have. The problem is we don't attack it right. If we had our vitamin D, our magnesium, our vitamin K2, our calcium at a good rate, all of those things would lead to better bone density plus resistance training. The best thing that I've seen to reverse bone density is I make ladies that get that bone density test go weightlift for 2 months, and it reverses. It starts to change almost immediately. So just remember that as we go. But if we have all the parts and the pieces, then it works. Here's the problem. If we did all that, so we have vitamin D, magnesium, K2 in there, and we don't get the result we want, then we're missing trace minerals. So boron is really important to understanding how getting that calcium to work and go into the bone like it's supposed to. Hopefully that makes sense. But the trace minerals make a huge difference in our utilization of these different supplements. So trace mineral. I'll hit you again many times. Okay. So now let's go into some supplements, and we'll keep going until we get to the herbs. All right. And some of these are the ones that I like. And it doesn't mean you have to, but there's one on here that doesn't have a ton of what I would say science on it, but when one of the oldest chiropractors in the history of our field tells us that it's a good one, I'm going to listen. All right. So that's at the end of this slide. So we'll talk about that one. Glucosamine. I've always had hit and miss on this one. However, the studies do show that it can help with cartilage. If you still have cartilage, if you're not like so far gone that it's like what they consider bone on bone, right? So there's no real true bone on bone. If anybody knows, bone on bone means it's locked, it's over. But there's so little cartilage in there that they just call it bone on bone. It's really, really close. So a lot of times the glucosamine is not going to get you where you want to be. Now, you start taking it as a regular thing, you're doing this resistance exercise, maybe you can keep and maintain the cartilage that, you're there. And a lot of these studies so in America, we didn't do a lot of glucosamine studies, but overseas in Europe, they really use this one a lot. So I would recommend taking it, especially as it goes. But I was in the beginning, I was like, if it's too far gone, if sometimes if you're asking, it's too late, if that makes sense. Unless that bone, if you have good motion in the joint that's bothering you, though, glucosamine could be a really good one. Okay, so that one's the last supplement in the vitamins and minerals and those kind of things that I want to bring up. Now let's talk about some foods that are shockingly good for bones. And they still don't know why, but cabbage, the research shows that cabbage is actually good for your bones, which makes it awesome because I said, hey, does that mean sauerkraut? They said yes. So some active ingredient within cabbage is fantastic for bone health. So just remember that. So if you're a sauerkraut fan, now's your chance. There's lots of ways to do cabbage like that you could you know what I mean? And so cabbage wraps, constantly good. It's good things that we could do. All right. I like in bone health, especially almost like a Mediterranean type diet. Because one of the things that happens, like in keto, like we said, if we miss a lot of those vitamins and minerals, those critical building blocks, it's hard to build anything. And so a lot of times I like start with some kind of Mediterranean where there's the good fruits and veggies that you'd want, in there before it's just all, protein, because protein is fantastic. So meat, go after it, right? And keto is awesome. It's like not even an issue, but what do you want to do, right? What is your ultimate goal with how you're doing that? Okay. So just remember that. So Mediterranean's basically fish and, fruits and veggies, essentially. So it's just a very clean way to do it. All right. And and this is on the last one or the one before. Keto feels good because it reduces all the inflammation markers, right? So if I get rid of all my ultra processed foods, sugars, all those fake things, your inflammation goes away. Plus, if you let's say you're young enough and you've done this stuff and your body's already good with muscle regeneration and all those things, keto can be fantastic for muscle building and bone health, right? A good bone broth. Bone broths are fantastic. I didn't put that on the sheet. I should have. Bone broth, there's a ton of good things you can get out of that bone broth, and your gut doesn't have to digest very much. So remember bone broth as well. Black cherry concentrate is the one that I have zero science on. However, I've seen this work in arthritic conditions more than once. It worked on me. I had, I'll tell you her name, and I'll give you my story. Ann Buffinga. She was, I want to say when I got to start taking care of her, she was 92. I was lucky enough to be blessed to be chosen by her to get to adjust her. And so I'd adjust her like every week. And she ended up being a chiropractor. She was 95, I believe, 96 before she had passed away. But one of the things that she'd do is, as I work on her, she'd get mad because she wanted to work on me, like a trade. And I'm like, and with Ann, it was just, I moved too fast. So it wasn't one of those things where I could do, because Ann was very detailed. It would take you about, 45 minutes to get adjusted, which is awesome, right? That's all my ultimate goal when I'm older like that. I want to be able to like slow down and do a lot of those kind of things, but she was walking through and I was like, Ann, I got this heel pain. And I think it's plantar fasciitis. I've been really busy and walking a lot, and I tried to exercise, and I'm kind of chubby and trying to run. It's probably bad on my feet. And she's like, that's not what it is, boy. I go, what is it? You got gouty crystals in there because you keep eating crap. I was like, oh, really? And she whacked my foot and goes, take some black cherry concentrate and it'll fix in no time. And she was not wrong. It was like 5 days of the cheapest supplement. Like black cherry concentrate at our office is like $12, something like that, maybe 13. Oh, and you take a little spoonful and it literally it was like instant. So no science to back it. I have no idea, but our gouty crystals are part of the joint health that you want to keep going. So you don't want gout crystals and stuff landing up into your joints. That's never a good thing, right? So black cherry concentrate, remember that one. All right, here's some good stuff. All right, so this is the foods you can do that kind of lead to that good bone and joint health. Okay, so we're going to walk through the foods and then we'll be on to the herbs at the very end here. So fatty fishes, which is salmon, mackerel, sardine. Okay. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, good fats, really, really good. They have tons of omega. It helps a ton. The fish and eating fish and fish oil has been hugely connected to osteoarthritis or that degenerative arthritis. So remember that, as you go. Here's the next one is nuts and seeds, especially walnuts, chia seeds, and flax. They have another group of omega-3s, because omega-3s is what you want in your body a lot for that osteoarthritis and, those kind of things. And it acts as an antioxidant for anti-inflammatory. Okay. So the walnuts, especially chia and flax, are fantastic. And they go with what we talked about in the whey protein part, where you got the leucine and all those. This can go easily into a protein shake with all that stuff. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. Fantastic with antioxidants, which is they're one's called anthocyanin, and it combats inflammation. And it's real. Berries are really good at the reducing the arthritis pain. So remember that. Too much though, remember that too. You can mess with if you're insulin resistant, right? If you're pre-diabetic, you could be gaining some weight. So you just got to be careful there. Okay. So that's key. That's kind of critical. That's why we had to go through all the other stuff we did before. We want to make sure we're eating right. All those things are lining up. Leafy greens, they'll always be in there. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, and collard greens. They give you a lot of that stuff we were talking about before. Vitamin C, K, antioxidants. And vitamin C, this is a good one to remember. Vitamin C, making sure you have that for your collagen. Okay. So you want that because it will help with your collagen support. Cruciferous vegetables, which are your broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower, they have, this is a good one. They have sulforaphane as an active ingredient. And it actually, they think the study shows that it slows cartilage breakdown. That's a huge one we'd like, right? I like that too. So that tells you, eat your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts. Hopefully I get Rachel, one of these nights I'll get Rachel cooking like her Brussels sprout one. So she mixes, I'll stop just for a sec. So she mixes a ton. So she'll mix just different various vegetables on a plate, a little olive oil, I think, and some different spices on top of that, and just bake it in the oven. And once it comes out, like sweet potato will be in there and all this stuff. And it makes this like absolutely delicious food. And you can put it with any meat. I throw a little ketchup on there, a good ketchup. Good. It's not got to be perfect, right? You get as much good stuff, right? We're trying to go for that bucket. But a lot of times it's fantastic. And you can feel the energy. You can literally feel it. So just remember those in the cruciferous vegetables. Olive oil, huge, huge, huge. Remember, not as a cooked oil. Okay. So we want to put this on salads, maybe, those kind of situations. Huge. Listen to this one. Olive oil by itself has anti-inflammatory effects as similar to ibuprofen. And so they suggest, a 2017 study suggested 1 to 2 tablespoons a day could reduce joint pain. Interesting. If there's some out there that listen to this, I want to hear you do that. Olive oil, taking 1 to 2 tablespoons a day. That'd be fantastic. I have a new, well, I won't talk to you too much tonight. I'm sorry. I'll let you guys go. It's probably getting boring. Okay. So now here's the good part. All right. So this is the stuff that I really want you to focus on as far as the herbals. Remember, we got to get our vitamins, minerals, foods, all of those things kind of lined up. Now we're ready. We're sitting pretty good. We're feeling good. Our joint pain's going down. Our bones getting a little stronger. What could help us with this stuff? And there's going to be some that turmeric, as the curcumin in the turmeric is anti-inflammatory. Ginger, anti-inflammatory and pain reliever. Okay. 1,000 milligrams daily, 500 to 1,000 milligrams daily is shown to decrease pain and stiffness in osteoarthritic patients. Okay. Turmeric, I'll go back to that one. I'll just tell you how much, so you guys if you can't read my screen, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams daily actually reduced pain and improved function almost equal to ibuprofen in a 2016 study. That's huge. Ginger and turmeric. We have a bunch of supplements at the office that have a lot of those in there. Problem is most people don't take enough. And so we try to get you up to that level of we don't take enough therapeutic dose, basically. Boswellia is serrata. Boswellia serrata is frankincense. It reduces inflammation. This one is really, really good, actually. So remember Boswellia, one that's often forgot about. I'm getting better at recommending a lot of this stuff. That's one reason I put it online, so that I don't forget these things. But it has 100 to 250 milligrams daily improved pain and mobility in knee osteoarthritis. So that's big. That could be very, very big. Okay. And so as I get better at these herbs, you're going to see them you're going to hear about them at the office all the time. So hopefully you're telling me about them. All right. Devil's claw. Devil's claw. It's traditionally used for joint pain, but it reduces, they say it's moderate. I've seen this huge. Devil's claw. I have this as a tincture at the office. I tell people if they want to try it, replace your Tylenol or aspirin. And I have one guy that's all he uses, because he was so happy. He just uses it when he needs to, and he knows it doesn't hurt him. Rose hips. Rose hips is a good antioxidant, and it does reduce inflammation, and it helps with, it sounds funny, but mobility in the hips or the knees. So that's awesome. So that's a good one. Willow bark, you'll hear me talk about that. It contains salicylate. It is very, very similar. It's nature's aspirin. So it's the same stuff they use in aspirin, just not in the chemical form. And I think it does ease pain quite a bit. There's some stomach irritation they're saying on that one that could happen, but that one's really good. That is my Tylenol. That is my aspirin. Okay. That's what I use. Boswellia is going to be in my wheelhouse very, very soon, though. Here's a crazy one, and we'll talk about, and we're almost to the end, I promise. Stinging nettle. Stinging nettle is basically a weed that we have all over the place. If I see you growing it in your flower garden, I might have, before this, would have thought you're crazy. But people have used that stinging nettle, made it themselves, mixed it, boiled it, got the medicinal properties out of it, and actually put it as a topical ointment on joint pain. It's been done for thousands of years. And so stinging nettle, if you see it, if you're able to identify it, collect it. You're going to get more of it anyway. It looks like a weed, right? So it's very, very cheap, very easy to get. Start getting good at that. That is something that I am going to work on getting a nice stinging nettle plant, putting it somewhere, seeing what I can do as far as medicinal goes and how effective it is, so these are things I want you to experiment as well. Okay. So, all right. Well, I didn't keep you too long. The herb one always makes it go a little longer, but that's okay. It was fun. What are we going to do this week for our 1% tribe? Get a list together. Look at your multivitamin. Make sure that you have everything. Do you have a trace mineral? If you don't, reach out. Oh, let me do this real quick. I don't know if you guys are skilled enough. However, in the corner, there's a little QR code that's hooked to this lower. Actually, let me do this. Oh, shoot. How am I going to get that? All right, hang on. I will be. All right, let's do this. Oh, here we go. Copy. There we go. So here in the comments, I will put the full script. It's called My Store in there. This is a store that's hooked to me, so you can actually ask questions and stuff. But it's all vetted supplements. So if you have questions on those, there's a way we can connect in there. You can order whatever you want. It's just like Amazon, but all the stuff's vetted. So remember the full script. It's fantastic. And I throw at you a ton of these situations. And so hopefully that makes it a little easier on you. And I love talking about this. Okay. So let's go through it. Make sure your diet's good. Let's make sure that our diet is good. We hammer on that every time. The cleaner you eat, the better. Making sure our diet is rich in these good foods that we put out there. Try to eat with all those different things. Try to eat the kale. Try to eat those kind of things in our daily diet. Okay. Get the awesome supplements. Find a really good multi that'll cover a lot, so you're not just inhaling supplements all day. At our office, we have liquid options to regular, from the full script options to CHUPS situation. So we have all kinds of options, and there's tons out there. We just have to make sure they're good and they're catching everything you want to for the intention that you have. Okay. And the latest, and Julie brought it up, when we do our anti-inflammatory, I'm working on a very, very cool program. We have most of the beginning steps of the bigger program kind of already in place. So meet with us. See what we have, this nutritional blood work that happens at our office. And we kind of walk you through that process. And then we can get you the vitamins and supplements you need based on your blood work, which is really, really cool. And it can help you understand where you're at. But just remember, muscles and bones go into a situation where we just don't pay attention to them as much until we're kind of behind the 8 ball. Everything was going fine, and now this hurts, and then this hurts, and then you go, man, I'm weaker than I ever was. Let's stop doing that. Let's start going after the intention. Let's start building that foundation. Building the foundation with the multivitamins, the muscle. Like I'm telling you guys, I know people say, oh, I take all these vitamins. If you take the right stuff, you definitely know the difference. And it's worth it. It totally is worth every time that you can do these situations. So if we can just build that foundation and then start working on the muscle and the bones, life is so much easier. So with that, my friends, don't forget Wednesday night, 6:30. It'll be awesome. We're going to be talking about different health topics for the week. If you have any and you're watching the recording, put it in there. I'll try to remember to go back and look and see what kind of health topics. We try to find the ones that are online that are in the news, right? The narratives, so to speak. And those narratives, are they good? Are they bad? We look at it from a holistic perspective. So hopefully you enjoyed tonight, and I will see you this Wednesday. Have a good one.